it's Wes, and we're back to the old setup so that we can have a little bit more space to try out this light, the GVM PRO BD45R. It's a bit of a mouthful. So what do we have? It's another LED bar light, or tube light, or wand light, whatever you want to call it light. We've seen a few of these before, the most common being the Nanlite PivoTube 30C. We're looking at right here. Hey-oh! So many shiny things going on. A light that in many ways is a more industrial version of the PivoTube. In my review of the PivoTube, I noted that it's a bit squishy. This is not squishy. Even the front light part is much more rigid, and the back is a very solid aluminum frame. And on the back, we have a DMX controller. We have a DC power in. We have a screen, no solid off-on switch. It doesn't appear to be water sealed. We do get app control. So I can see here that I'm in the hue loop setup. So I can decrease my saturation, I can increase or decrease my intensity. I can change the rate of change. Now the fastest rate of change is this. Slowest rate of change, you don't really notice it changing at all. And then we can go back out into different things, whether it be a white balance loop or get back out of the effects to just do CCT mode here. And interestingly enough, in the CCT mode, we can change the red to green, or the tint balance. So we can go all the way green or all the way red. That's something that most light bars didn't offer in the past, but I think it's becoming a little bit more common. Let's go back to the hue loop, because that was a lot of fun. Now, I could just control it with the app, or I could use the interface on the device itself, which I have to say is, not a lot of fun. We don't have a wheel, we have plus minus, so we use a tab button to go through the different settings, and then we press plus minus. If you hold it down, you can go a little faster, it'll jump by increments of 5. But I would much rather use the app. Maybe I'm just a millennial that way, more of a Gen X. But anyway, and as you can see, we are plugged in, which is much more convenient for a professional shoot. But in addition to the plug, we can also put batteries into it. So this will take 2 Sony classic style batteries, and you have a DMX out on that side as well. We can crank 2 batteries in at any time, swap them out, put in 2 more batteries, so that can keep us going. Whereas with the PivoTube, you either have to bring a power adapter around or just hope you have enough charge. How does it stack up with regards to features and light? Well, we have pretty much all the same sort of effects going on available here. Because it has the aluminum back, it can sink heat a little bit better, and it is kind of crazy how much heat this thing will sink. The back of this will get up to 47 degrees Celsius when it's running at full power, whereas the PivoTube kind of just, I don't know where its heat goes, because it's all plastic on the outside. Now, I've taken this apart before, and there is a metal bar down the middle, and then the batteries are mounted in the back of it here. And I actually had one of these fail. I had to open it up because one of the wires got pinched inside there. Because again, this is a squishy frame and things can get pinched. This one is hard. Now, one issue that I had is when you're running on battery, if your batteries die, You do get a nice battery meter, so you can kind of keep an eye on it there. It's not super granular. But when your batteries die, all your settings revert back to default. So if you're in a particular mode or effect or something, you gotta toggle back into that. That's kind of annoying. It doesn't save the settings automatically. You gotta shut it down and then the settings are saved. So for light output, it's kind of crazy how comparable all of these lights are. So if we have a closer look here, the PAVO tube puts out 55 watts, which equates to 647 lux at 1 meter. This, the GVM, is 45 watts, which is 750 lux at 1 meter. That seems like a difference, but to the human eye, that is not much of a difference at all. We have the Quasar Science, it's 50 watts, AMRAM T4C, 50 watts. So they're all about the same power output. I suspect that has a lot to do with the ability to sink heat in this sort of a form factor. But also there is this weird little outlier here, the Zhiyun 5-ray F100, and the 100 stands for 100 watts. But that is a little bit deceptive. I'm gonna have a full review out on this soon, but this thing, most of the time, is only putting out 40 to 60 watts. Unless you put it into boost mode, fans kick up, and then it'll blast out 100 watts. But it gets kinda loud, and it's clearly not designed to run constantly in boost mode. And also the max 100 watts is only at 4000 K. So it's a very warm color temperature. Whereas, if we measure the actual power being consumed by this, it is 47 watts all the time. So I charted it from 2700 K all the way up to 10,000 K, 47 watts, period. So there appears to be a limitation built right into the power handling here, and not a limitation of how much power can go through the LEDs on this bar. What does it end up looking like? Well, this is a highly diffused bar, and it gives some pretty soft light. Let's look at some photos here. Disadvantage of lighting someone with this bar form factor is that you get soft shadows in one direction and hard shadows in the other direction. So depending on the person's complexion, skin tone, and so forth, the shape of their face, even as simple as that, sometimes that's flattering and sometimes it's not. Now you can put two of them together and make an X. It gets a little bit hot in the middle, but then that spreads out the shadows a little bit. But by that point, we're no longer in the much more convenient form factor. I love working with the bar form factor because, well, when you're using it, usually just like this, significantly easier than having a gigantic softbox like we see here. Hey-oh! Giant softbox kind of gets in the way. This thing, much simpler, much easier to move around. But obviously this isn't nearly as bright as, say, a flash in a softbox, but for video work, it can get pretty bright. Let's crank her up. See if I can use the app for that again. Now that the app is all signed out, we'll see how fast we can do this. Pretty fast. So we are at 5600K, 100% output. Now I've mounted this little Godox arm on the back that came with the 8300 Pro, just so that I can easily articulate it. But on the back here, you'll actually see a wide variety of mounting points. But this is actually an Arca Swiss foot. And then you have the two styles of mounting threads right in the middle there. Easy peasy. And so that gives it something easy to latch onto, whereas the PAVO tube, you had to use like their clamp-on mounts or, dangle it from this wire in the back here. They clearly didn't put a lot of thought into how you would be mounting that. Whereas this one, you have a rail, and you can loosen the screws holding the rail on and slide it up and down the pipe to put that anywhere you want. It's really designed for more of a production environment, which is almost surprising because GVM is generally considered to be kind of a low-cost option, kind of a beginners, amateur sort of thing, and then people buy more expensive stuff. But they've obviously put some more thought into making this very usable in a production environment, and thanks for that, GVM. But overall, this is a big tube light. This is a chunky one. But I've been lighting this tube light with something much more subtle. This is the GVM 8R, a much more compact 8-watt light, but it's a lot more directional, and so it actually puts out much closer to the amount of light to the big bar than you would expect. A much more typical design. We see a lot of these tiny on-camera mountable lights, but this one is an all-metal back and sides. Unfortunately, we don't have Bluetooth pairing like we did with the other GVM light. Oh, it is bright and it is small. On the bottom here, we have our threads on one side, we have threads on the other side, and then an anchor point beside the threads, and USB-C charging. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Now let's have a look at some prices now that we're back at the desk with the fancy microphone. The GVM BD45R comes in at $480, which is pretty far up on the spectrum. Once again, I'm a little bit surprised at where GVM aimed this light. Normally, they're aiming a little bit further down market, but here they've gone up a bit. And we'll compare that to the Godox TL120 is $300. There is, of course, the ubiquitous Nanlite Pavo Tube 30C Mark II for $320, an Amran T4C at $330. There is also the Quasar Science Rainbow 2, and that one comes in at $900. And so we clearly are paying a little extra for this hardier build quality that we're seeing in the GVM light.
If you have any questions about this, the GVM PRO BD45R, the light bar with one of the longest light bar names, let me know down in the comments below. Well, until next time, let's light it up. Takes a second to turn on. We'll go take some photos. And one final little nitpick. When you go to put these batteries on, there's a release, so that's nice that they lock in. But it has a clever design that the release is locked. So I can't just jam a battery in. Gotta press the button and slide it in. I feel like someone was really thinking, but not in the right direction. I would like to be able to put the batteries in easier, but it's great that they don't fall back out again, so thanks, I guess.